astrologer who didn't predict I'd dump you tonight?
I trusted YouTube astrologers.
Next time, trust Hypergate.
My horoscope said tonight would be unforgettable.
It will be. I poisoned your wine.
Wait, what?
If you'd used Hypergate, you'd have seen this coming.
Hypergate says there's hope for your marriage.
Oh. Wonderful.
It's called divorce.
Come on, what's the issue?
I can't date someone still watching YouTube astrologers. Hypergate AI is the real deal.
What do you mean it's not going to work out?
Honey, if your astrology's still on YouTube, you need an upgrade. Hypergate AI or nothing.
Dude, this isn't working.
Yeah, we're doomed.
Boys, you're doing it wrong. Get Hypergate AI.
What is going on, everyone? It is David Palmer, Leo King, and Dr. Ann Wohlcke here with History in the Stars. We'll be covering the history of the old, or both, the old and Wild West. How's it going? How you doing, Ann? It's good to be with you back in the studio. It's been a minute.
It has been a minute, and I'm happy to be here. And I am here now. Yeah, I'm really excited to be back today, and I think this is the first show I've had with you where you've had two children on this side of the womb, right?
Right.
So how's everything going with that?
It's been a Wild West experience itself. No, it's actually been really amazing and beautiful. I definitely feel like a different person, though. I think you go layers. Becoming a parent's the biggest one. Then there's like this, if you do go for two, especially 2 under 2, it changed my life like fully. Like, you know, we're here doing this. We met in the morning here. This network has always run in the afternoons and the evenings, you know. No, so, but it's been beautiful. Like just the experience, watching Aurora just love her little brother. Like the wholesome moment Sophia and I are having right now and the family together, there's no other feeling in the world that's better. I would put it as. I mean, it's like, and it's like they grow up so quick. So it's like they're only like this for just a little moment of your life, and then I'll be worried about this and that, and you know. So it's like I'm treasuring every second of it. You know, I know you have two, and you have a boy and a girl as well.
I had a girl first, and then a boy, and it is so exciting to. It's exciting, and I don't even know what the word is. It's like, it's just this feeling like, oh no, I have a whole nother human also, and you realize how far you came with the first one when you get the second one. Like I was saying earlier to you, my daughter finally was potty trained by the time the second one came along. And then you think, oh, I just made it through all of that. I'm going to have to do it again. But it was all so much easier with the second. I hear that from a lot of people that the second kind of just falls in line and, you know, and they want to start going to the bathroom and the toilet. And so their potty training is easier because they see everybody else doing it. So, or not everyone, they see their older sibling, I guess. It depends on the household. So yeah, it's so fun though. And it's always a new experience. And I'm so excited for you. For both you and Sophia. You're both great parents. They're so lucky. They're so lucky they came to the Wild West as well, as we'll talk about today.
Very much.
They decided to be born here as California's becoming even wilder, I think.
Well, and I think that's an interesting way to look at this whole subject with the history and the astrology is that I think people forget that, you know, Neptune being found in Aries or in Pisces and it being found in 1846 through 48 was its ingress into Pisces. It's the same time that California, right? The gold rush, 1849. The establishment of California is done during Neptune and Pisces. And what a interesting, you know, territory to turn into a state where everybody's thinking there's gold here, yet It's like 3% of people that came actually got gold. Most people got claim jumped. It was not a nice place to be. It had a really bad taste in the newly found Levi genes of many people. That was actually the bigger thing, right? To become Levi and company in that family. They did better than most gold people, but and then a lot of people left. So for me, when Neptune was exiting Pisces, I was kind of laughing because I was like, haha, that's where everybody leaves California. They can't find their gold. So, and to me, it's like the Hollywood, the illusion of like, I can be famous, I could be this, I could be that. And even the idea of homelessness, it might not have been the same, but it is similar. People came here, they came on a covered wagon, they got here, they put everything they could to stake a claim and dug and found pyrite, fool's gold, and lost everything, and then had to find a way to get back to the East Coast or get back to Middle America, to maybe even go to Oklahoma, to new territories in Nebraska or something like that, to get back just to some place where they could try and start up again, because there wasn't anything out here. So I've always found that as the really interesting story to it all, to me, is that part of it, that it wasn't crazy for me to see people kind of like freak out about California the same way that in American history, people freaked out about California, and especially when the Civil War happened, it was kind of like that was something that we experimented, and people just kind of got over the gold rush idea, and it became a state that stayed in the Union during the Civil War. And it's interesting that California just went through some similar tests with this whole immigration fight, and with Newsom, and this whole kind of replay of Neptune and Aries and the Civil War. And we got the closest to Fort Sumter in downtown LA at the time of Neptune coming into Aries, and it looks like the governor chose not to go and secede or do anything crazy. So, and I think that's because more of California's history, that it actually doesn't do that in the history.
Yeah, what I think is interesting is just how short that period of time was, from 1848 or 1848 to 1849. So California is now a U.S. territory. Then it becomes a state quickly. Then it actually, by it becoming a state, doesn't it start to aggravate some of the conditions that led to the Civil War, because it tipped the balance for, on slave states or non-slave states, that it was a non-slave state. So that creates more anxiety for the slave states. And then by the time of the 1870s, you have the railroads already. So that period of time where California was really hard to get to, you had to really fight to get here. You had to fight to set up your claim. You probably didn't make it rich. You had to go home. It took you weeks or months to get back home again if you didn't die on the way, right?
Well, and you lost a lot of people don't realize the covered wagon deal. Man, we're having issues. This computer is not wanting to switch cameras right now.
Hello, everybody. I'm still on.
Yeah, no, we are. It's just, it takes it.
I wonder if it's
it.
Mercury retrograde.
It is Mercury retrograde. The thing is people, like, not to say they were dumb, because I honestly, I think you would know better being a historian. We live in a world today where we buy a lot of things and we just chuck it. People held on to things through generations, right? So cookware to especially furniture, that's something like the 19th century becomes a lot more common person having furniture, believe it or not. And so people took this stuff with them. Little did they realize that great grandma's, china from China broke. Everything broke. Everything did not make it on the wagon trail. So a lot of people ended up in Oregon, because the Oregon Trail, and then you split south down to San Francisco if you were going to California. But they would get to Oregon, and that's where my family kind of capitalized after finding gold, is like, let's set up here and sell people saddles and sell people jewelry and sell people crystal and sell people the stuff that they had broke because they didn't get the memo on their 2-month journey on the wagon trails.
Well, you know what's really interesting as you said that and what your family did? I think the smart people, they along the way stopped and realized, hey, if we sell the things these people need, we'll actually have a reliable source of income and it will be an easier life and all of that. I was thinking about one of the last things that we did for a class this last semester. We did a presentation on W.K. Kellogg, and it's later. We're talking about the 1920s, but he came to California and established a ranch. I feel like I might have said this already, I hope not. But he established an Arabian horse ranch on the land that's today Cal Poly Pomona. And the way that W.K. Kellogg became rich, right? Eventually he had a cereal company, but the way he became rich was by selling brooms, right? So, I mean, who would think? And in today's world, I mean, I really wonder if most people scale down to that level and can just think, actually, this is an issue I hope will come up today, but to think about not the big picture, not the big things that today we have so many billionaires constantly in our face, right? In social media, on TV, whatever they're up to. Are they going to space today? What are they trying to take over the government? Or are we all afraid they're going to? Whatever it is. But the people at this time who made money made it from really small ventures, including the Winchesters, who we'll talk about today.
Yes.
And so it's just sort of, that's where the real gold during this time was for the people who were looking for opportunities to make money and to coordinate things that other people needed, figuring out ways to manufacture things other people needed.
Yeah, and also in a territory in we can't call California a state at that time. But then, of course, Oregon, right? It's like territories flipping to states is also a major point of Neptune Aries, which I find interesting. It's where Nebraska, it's where Oklahoma, it's where all these like territories just start flipping to the government actually giving incentives and saying, if you're here for a certain amount of time, then you can live here. But if you don't, there's like all these very unique, weird things. But there's nothing. People have to create things. So like the Levi's, for example, well, people are on their knees. There were no denim jeans back then. The smartest idea, if you're on your knees panning for gold all day,
right?
And also to be able to go walk into town or do things, smart. I think guns, which is a big part of the show today, which is going to be interesting because, you know, guns up until the point of really where we get to Neptune Aries. I mean, even part of this history we're going to cover is during the Civil War, Lincoln having an opportunity to really use this more innovative technology where you're not going to have to use the old style musket that had been in service really for almost 200 years, the first ideas of it and so forth, and chooses to stay with those instead of using a fast action rifle and actually be able to you know, hold a cartridge, hold bullets and create bullets and actually move the whole entire world in guns, I guess you could say, in a crazy way. It's actually a big deal. My fourth great grandfather on the way here on the Oregon Trail got shot by one of those muskets because it just went off in the wagon car by the bumps.
One of the Winchester rifles or one of the
No, it was a musket,
old musket,
but it was loaded.
Wow.
Right? So the hammer came down on it and shot him. And it wasn't his, it was another wagon that he was with. And it shot him.
Wow.
He survived, of course, but like, you know, so the safety element too, and the quickness, and also on the battlefield, the musket was horrible.
Right.
It was horrible.
So the So first of all, let me say that in the chat, people mentioned Ozzy Osbourne died. I had no idea.
Oh, wow. I didn't know idea. I know he just did his last show. Just recently, yeah.
Wow. And I know nothing about it, so it could be a rumor, but yeah. And Malcolm Jamal Warner from The Cosby Show. But it is not David's birthday yet. His birthday's tomorrow. So the day before his birthday.
And my solar return is tomorrow at 5:30 a.m.
Okay. so anyway, maybe we can come back to that. I don't know. But I was going to ask you this, because if you go back to the early 19th century, it's actually the middle of the 19th century that these repeating rifles started to come out, that people started to think you could have a rifle that's not just going to be loaded in the back of your wagon and fall down and go off with the one shot, right? So when the repeating rifles were created, it was 1855 about, I think, or it had already happened before that. I'm interested right now, actually, you know what, I wanted to back up and just say, I became really interested in this topic when I visited the Winchester Mystery House, which is in San Jose, and it's Sarah Winchester's place that she got a farmhouse and built it up. I can show the picture of it here if people are interested.
Trying to get this thing to work.
But it's not working. But,
hold on one second.
So you can look at Winchester Mystery House website if you're interested. But when I was in that mansion, it's known for being like this ghostly place. It's supposed to have been, she was always building it. It's this home up in San Jose, started to be built in the 1880s, early 1880s. And she just started to build this house, and it was constantly undergoing construction for her entire life there, that it was never completed. In 1906, there was an earthquake, and a lot of it fell down.
Now.
And let me show you. I can show you a picture of the front from, oh, actually, I mean, I'll just keep that up. But in 1906, part of the house fell down, and she continued to live there. And some of the construction died off, so actually parts of the house were knocked down. So it made it look like there were doors that went to nowhere and all of that. And that kind of increased the legend after she died, that this was this place that no one understood why it got built the way it was. When someone bought this place in 1922 or 25, I can't remember when exactly it is, they start this legend that it was a mystery house built by the widow of the Winchester Firearms Company, and that she was building it in consultation with spirits who told her to continue to build to appease the souls of people shot and killed by the Winchester rifle.
Wow.
And
I've been there actually. So
have you?
yeah. Oh yeah.
I grew up thinking, I want to go there because I always heard that story. Now,
I've been to all the big haunted houses, like up the whole coast, even into Oregon has some crazy ones.
I know. I remember one of those. You were talking about it.
Yeah, the little kid who died because of the lead bowls with the ice cream, and the lead just stayed in the ice cream.
Ugh.
But
all
like
the
that,
different
you know.
ways for people to die back then. But anyway, so I was all excited to go, and they do tell you a lot of those legends, and you go into one room that's just like boxed off, and there's only one way in, and then 3 ways out.
I know,
which is symbolically significant for Freemasons, for one thing.
And it's weird being in a house like that when the architecture is that way, because you're just not used to it. So it's like it feels different. I mean, that's why I'm a big believer in feng shui, right? So like when you start doing all those other things, there's other intentions behind it. No?
Well, yeah, and she was really into architecture, and she was building things deliberately, as it turns out. There's been this book by Mary Jo Ignofo. I'm mentioning her because I might have absorbed some of her ideas, because I've been reading that since I got back from the house. But she talks about how one of the best times in Sarah Winchester's life was with her husband when they were working on building their home back in New Haven, and she really enjoyed the construction process, and her husband was very interested in architecture. So Sarah Winchester actually subscribed to and read a lot of architectural magazines, not only from the United States, but from France at the time. And that would be really interesting to look at because they toured some very interesting locations in Europe that were constructed with ideas of sort of Rosicrucian or Freemason principles, that the design should be something that could make people contemplate their spiritual renewal and improvement. Now, Sarah Winchester never said that's what she was doing. But when I looked at that house, when I walked through it, and you go to one area where there's 7 steps down and 11 steps up, everything's got 13. Like 13 was her favorite number. There's 13 that's echoing throughout the whole thing. There was a tower originally that was 7 stories tall. All these things kind of go back to esoteric ideas about the meaning and significance of Hermetic principles, like leveling up 7 levels, or there's so much in the architecture. So it's interesting to me that that's not really studied and talked about a lot. But what we talk about is this idea she was some kind of spiritualist who was hiding away and conducting seances to find out from the spirits, what should I build to appease the spirits? And that was probably great for the tourism of this place. But I feel like there's a much deeper significance in the way she was building things.
Yeah, there is, because I think it's also interesting you bring up the Mason aspect, because if you go to San Jose, to me, that's the cornerstone of San Jose. I mean, like, the biggest part of San Jose, Santana Row, is on that street. That's like the main street, right? So this whole city gets built around that house.
Yeah.
And I don't think that's crazy, because if you go to a lot of cities, especially even older ones, there is usually a lodge. Like Hollywood Boulevard, for example. Across the street from the Chinese Man Theater is the Hollywood Mason Lodge, which of course is the Jimmy Kimmel Show now. But, you know, and they try to hide it a little bit now with the signs, you know, and ABC and all that. But it shows it. It's all right there. And the pillars, it's a nice one. It's a big one, too. I always find it really interesting on TV. I don't watch that show, but, you know, you know, these cornerstones, whether they're homes, and sometimes they can be built in a certain way. It doesn't have to be a temple. But that's the other part of like Neptune Aries, is like, maybe the stories of ghosts and stuff kind of become more, coming into Neptune Aries, become more like defined by things happening. Like example, I'll put it on mine for a sec about the weapons of the Civil War, because this is the first war that it becomes, and there was actually the Civil War that was with, I think, England, or maybe was it the East India Company mixed with Russia at the time? That was all in 1857. That was right. That was, I think, the beginning of like new warfare with like muskets, but also rifles, cannons, like and trying out new weaponry. I think we had covered that before. But that's what's interesting, is that it was rifles, muskets, pistols, and artillery. So it's like, of course, it becomes the bloodiest war in American history, right? But that's what's so interesting, is like it was the 1861 musket. So they weren't like the 1776 style that you're looking at. Like the 1861 definitely had much more of like a modern tone to it. But that's where I'm saying like the musket, the idea, like when that thing's cocked back, those things had fail rates that were crazy, and you're still putting a musket ball in there, right? And there's still the packing that happens. So the idea of coming out with, like, at the time, let's look at the first Winchester rifle, the first one, right here. This is, they call it repeating. Oh, wow. I have to put in my birthday. It's tomorrow. Remember me for 180 days. Sure, cookie that up. But this is what's really cool, right? Because to me, it's like this is where you no longer have to just pack in one bullet, right? There's the idea that you can start to load a couple rounds in and quick it out and shoot again. And also, you're not having the fail rates, and it's portable. That's the other thing. It's not like you want to carry a musket around.
Well, you know what's interesting? Of course, you don't want to carry a musket and then all your. How do you do your shots?
Because you have your little bag full of gunpowder, right?
I watched Glory. I know how they do.
Yeah, right. And then you have to have the balls that are made, and it's not like you just go to a shop today to buy bullets and ammunition. It's like, okay, the army usually were the ones making them, and they're not all the same, and they're not all the same coming out. They're not perfect.
Right.
Some of them would break. So it'd only be like a chunk at you, and it would like hit you and fall off soldiers, and you'd be like, oh, I got lucky. Or sometimes there wasn't enough gunpowder, or there wasn't good enough gunpowder, so it would just be kind of like a Nerf war. I'm not saying it was like a Nerf war, but you know what I mean? Like sometimes there'd be soldiers
paintballish,
where just like the ball, the musket ball just bounces off you, just like it wasn't enough inertia. Yeah. And that's the other thing is then this also creates this idea of, oh, let's make this more pointy and let's actually create a bullet and actually encapsulate it all in there and have the firing pin actually hit the bullet and do it that way, right? It's a completely new, innovative thing. And it's so interesting because Aries rules war. And honestly, I think people kind of, I'm so glad you brought this subject to our attention a couple of weeks ago. We've been talking about this, but this actually is kind of what changes the whole idea of the world, and the ideas of the Old West and the stories are all really kind of based off.
Yeah, I didn't realize it until I went to that mansion and thought, why in the world did this lady in the middle of nowhere at the time have such beautiful fireplaces and furniture that was built in? And, you know, it was that I was thinking, I finally realized how much money somebody was making from weapons at that time, how much money there had been in that. And then I thought, oh, well, yeah, the Civil War, of course, they must have made money off of that. But no, like what I was most surprised about, so the Henry rifle is that one that was one of the early repeating rifles that Winchester kind of brought into his factory, and they started to produce something.
But
like
see,
that.
there's no packing.
Right. But so I was thinking, why wouldn't the Union have
and
wanted
look at that? That's 1860. Neptune, Pisces coming into Aries, and then this gets brought to Lincoln's attention, and he goes, no, we'll just stay with the old things.
Well, actually, Lincoln did like it, is what I learned.
Oh, he liked it?
But he did admire the new technology, which is interesting considering how he
he
died,
was an Aquarius, so.
But, and he wasn't shot by something like this, I don't think. But it was the Army didn't want it because it would be too expensive to supply the ammunition. They thought it was a waste of ammunition to have a repeating rifle.
Yeah, because, I mean, 44 caliber, like, I mean, think of World War II, what it took to have people who weren't drafted and the citizens create the ammunition for World War II. I mean,
right.
Let's not forget we were using kids too. Right.
Well, this time I'm sure they would have used them.
And I can understand that, but that's where it's kind of one of those things where maybe it was just like divine timing for it not to, because it was already the worst, bloodiest war. And imagine if everybody was rolling around with these.
And some soldiers did have them.
Yes, correct.
Actually, they did buy some for a select amount, but then some soldiers would bring their own.
Yeah, because like during my whatever you call it, whenever you have a baby, my leave, my maternity leave.
Yeah.
whenever both of them are asleep and my time with my wife. And then it's like, I always would be like, okay, take my little hour and a half before I go to bed. I just watched this crazy 5-hour documentary that I spanned over a couple nights on every battle in the Civil War. Because I just had never done it. I wanted to.
Right.
And there were so many, especially in the South, in the Confederacy, so many militiamen, right? Just like, hey, we're just showing up. We had never been on the rolls. We heard you're rolling out to go get those Union guys, those Yankees. Let's go. And bring their own stuff and just not even wear uniforms, right? That's very kind of Revolutionary War with the militias, right? On the American side, but the Continental Army side. Whereas like you didn't see that on the Union side. But on the Union side too, there were people, especially, it's not up until a couple years in the war that finally the Emancipation Proclamation, but like people have to look like Abraham Lincoln was not the honest Abe, they say. I mean, he got rid of slavery, but still allowed in parts of the North where it was allowed, like certain parts to have it, and kind of did make slaves join the army and stuff like that. I mean, there's a lot of interesting, weird. He's not all he's all cracked up to be. He did also break a lot of the constitutional laws. So that's another subject, but Neptune and Aries does kind of rewrite the rules in a kind of crazy way and define them on their own.
But are they rewriting the rules because the situations are coming up that demand it, right? Or because Abraham Lincoln was dealing with states, there had been so much arguing, right, in the 1850s especially, that wasn't resolving. And so, and the country did break apart. So
yeah, it broke
does he
apart.
have to take these actions because of that?
Yeah, I mean, because he the spying was still around then, right? So they were able to know that the Confederates were trying to get Washington. So Washington, D.C. was covered with army, with cannons, because they knew that if Robert E. Lee or any of the generals got enough people into Washington and took it over, it was over. So they surrounded Washington, D.C. like a straight up fortified place. And that's when they pulled the rights from people because they knew that they were coming in. They had gotten wind that they were going to take a train in and there was going to be a bunch of, not bombs like we think of today, but, like cannon, and they had a bunch of weapons and they were going to bring a bunch of Confederates in. And so that's when he's like, I'm taking away people's rights. And they were able to quell it. He did it for like a week and they were able to quell it and they were able to catch the guys. But there were a lot of things, like if you spoke out, including in newspapers, if you spoke out against the Union, he was arresting people. So I think it's Neptune and Aries is more like, I'm defining things, whether I'm paying attention or not, it's a subconscious. I know I'm doing it, but I'm going to still do it. I know I'm not doing, maybe I want to do it, but I have to, or I want to, or it's also the persuasion element. And Lincoln was not doing well. His numbers didn't go up till 1863 at the end of the war. People did not like him in the country. People were not thinking he was doing a good job. So it's actually interesting to see how he wasn't a really liked president till the very end.
Yeah, the circumstances defined it, I guess.
Yeah, and I think that's where it kind of is this interesting place of like being in such a clashed country where there's a civil war, that really the idea of also westward expansion is the second wave besides gold rush, right? So that's how my family left literally 1860 because of the fact, like, we don't want to be part of the Civil War. We're Quakers. We're not going to get involved. So they left, right? And that's what's interesting is like, still, that's not a lot of people who leave. It's really after Neptune Aries and with these kind of new weapons that come out so people feel more comfortable, because that's the other thing about America is it's not just military, it's civilians who have the Second Amendment right. So guns become this huge thing. That's why there's so much money. You get the military and you got every gun shop, which really were just general stores that had guns, bicycles when they come out. Like, my family actually had these general stores, So I know a lot about that part of it. I can show the pics to people, but it's kind of crazy. But that's really when the westward expansion, I think, comes, is because of the rifle mixed with the end of the war and then kind of realizing, man, all these people have kind of gone out there. I guess there's got to be something else for me. And Reconstruction wasn't that pretty.
Yeah, it's interesting how much guns do play a part in all of that.
They do.
How they play a part in, I guess, in Neptune in Aries.
Very much.
Because as you mentioned before, what was happening like in the British Empire in 1857, and also in many different wars that were happening in Asia and Europe and in the Middle East during this time, they were actually being supplied with Winchester guns, which I think is really interesting
Really?
too. So when the U.S. government wasn't buying up the guns, because of course a war starts and you're a gun manufacturer, you probably think, we're going to make a lot of money, but they didn't. And so Oliver Winchester went to Europe and showed his guns and got all sorts of contracts, or whatever you call it back then, from people who were fighting in wars there. So he went to Turkey and sold all sorts of weapons, different parts of Europe. He went to Russia. So he was selling weapons all over Europe, and that's how they really had enough money to come back. And in the 1870s, when it was time to open up the West, they had enough money to be ready to supply that demand. So they had, already in the 1870s, there was an outpost.
That makes sense
in
with
San
Neptune and
Francisco.
Taurus.
Is that the 1870s? then?
Yeah, I mean, it's like halfway through the 70s is the change point, right, from Neptune Aries to Taurus.
So by the early 70s, they were
It's still
established
Neptune
already.
Aries, yeah.
Yeah. They had outposts. And, like Sarah Winchester, that's why she knew California and wanted to go there after her husband died.
I mean, here,
was
I
she'd
could
been there
just,
in 1870.
we could just show people for just this 1 millisecond here, just, we'll just do a wheel. Oh, but that still cuts it off. Here we go. And we'll just do the Neptune Aries, like I'll just run through the years of it so people can see. And then, yeah, so let's do 1860. And so I will put Neptune at the top of the chart here so we can make it easy for people to see. Hours. Let's put Neptune. All right, so I'm going to put it at the top of the chart for people. And now we're just going to go through the years. So Neptune Aries, of course, 1860-61, Civil War. Neptune Aries all the way, 1864, the war is over. That's the year of the end of the war, and it's Neptune at 8 degrees. When we get to 10 degrees, of course, the shooting of Lincoln happens, and he's gone. But if you see, it's really kind of interesting seeing, oh, wow, Neptune's still here at 21 degrees, 1870. And by 1874, we see the beginning of Neptune coming into Taurus here, and in 75 is the official ingress of Neptune into Taurus. So it's interesting to see the 1860s and the 70s really be the Civil War being the defining kind of aspect. A lot about of American history, especially, but even if in the idea of guns, I was just looking at the this was the rifle that the Confederacy used the most, which was the M1841 Mississippi rifle, which was a muzzle loading, and it was a percussion rifle, but it was used in the Mexican-American War. So
What
they
does it
were
mean
using
that
some
it's a
old
percussion
technology, yeah, and
What is
just
percussion rifle?
for that, I think it's like a much better way. We'll get the exact thing. So when you're loading the muzzle, the firearm locks, enabling them to fire reliably in any weather condition.
Okay.
Instead of like the old, like if you look at like the 1770s, right? See, like when they're loading that thing back, if it's raining and the water gets on it, you're done.
I have a real life experience with that. I have to say something about it really fast.
Yeah.
I visited the Battle of Waterloo, where Napoleon was defeated, right? And there were some French reenactors there trying to reenact marching and firing their muskets or whatever you would call them. And it was raining, and so there they were with the rain, and they could not get them to work.
Oh, weird.
And so I said, well, I guess that explains what happened at Waterloo. They got waterlogged.
I mean, there were some people who literally would like treat it almost like lighting it themselves in many ways with they would take if they couldn't get the hammer to come down, they would light it.
Oh.
They would get it to light through fire and almost kind of like an old cannonball, with a thing of twine and like that. That was desperation moments.
Wow. But there was all of this new technology where they had realized we need better weapons.
Correct. And they had these percussion caps that were used to kind of contain and hold the gunpowder in, right? Mm-hmm. So that's the hammer, and so that brings the barrel, and so that's actually without this is kind of the way up to where you get to where they could do it. But it's kind of interesting because it is older in the idea of that time. And I think that's where the South kind of really struggled, was their finances and getting in imports. Because what I learned through my 5-hour documentary of every battle was the first, and nobody talks about it enough, is that Lincoln really, his top general didn't agree. There was different war plans. The idea of Grant becoming the big general is really just because Grant's out there kind of figuring it out on his own and just making stuff happen and eventually becomes the better general. But it's even more interesting to me to see that they cut off the Mississippi from the South. That was the first thing. And so that's the South's way of getting things through and taking also imports through New Orleans. They also cut that off. And so the U.S. Navy cuts that off. They also cut off the British from speaking to Jefferson Davis. They get wind of it, and a U.S. Navy ship pulls up and says, "You're breaking our laws. You're in our waters. You don't want us to do that." And America actually gets the British to say, back off. And cuts the meeting off, and then the British were like, "I guess we're not going to screw with the South anymore for that con," which I find really interesting. That America, if those little two things didn't happen, it would have been a different war. But because the South can't get imports and can't export to make the money,
you know what I think is really interesting, since you just said that. So if they're successful in cutting off Britain from having the cotton, what's interesting is obviously the North is having an issue with cotton as well. And we kind of talked about this when we looked at Lizzie Borden way back when, where we were talking about what's the name for them? The Copperhead Democrats.
Yes.
And Oliver Winchester, who invested in this repeating rifle, he started out by being a shirt manufacturer. And you have to wonder if also, I think he was already switching over to weapons before the Civil War, but it's interesting that his supply would have been greatly diminished if he was still continuing to manufacture these shirts. But he made his money off of the New Haven shirt manufactory in New Haven, Connecticut. And it was a special kind of shirt that was like had a seam that would actually look nice.
I know, and that's what's really weird is that there were the women that were put in charge of these huge plantations with slaves and everything. Because the men went off to fight, and they had to do whatever they had to survive. So they were back channeling cotton to selling it to the north to make money. I mean, you have to keep your family alive, right? I mean, that's also where you get the underground railroads, right, and the slave exchange to get right. There's so much that was happening that the Confederacy really lost control in every area. Like people were like, I got to survive, and the main thing was they did not have a good Navy. And so a lot of the battles are the Navy backing up the soldiers. Like they're going down rivers. So the U.S. Navy, it's also the most interesting part because I was in the Navy. The Civil Wars, the U.S. Navy in freshwater rivers and bayous and everything, for a big part of the war. They're taking the ocean just to get to certain places. But a lot of the battles are like in these kind of weird moments where you're meeting the river to the ocean and they're taking up those places and the forts that were there that were set. And that's the other thing about Neptune, waterways, and it being very hot. I mean, I think of right now what's happening with the Middle East and the Suez Canal. We're even seeing about Panama and going over the Panama Canal again with China. Like there's all these things about kind of these contentious battle ideas and defining of like what's happening with who controls waterways for exchange and for war at the same time, or the fear of war.
Well, the waterways would be so important to moving your supplies and people, especially at that time. And I think it's significant probably for the same reasons, but more reasons today even. And then eventually you also have the railroads that kind of act like waterways in a way, right? Because now you can move goods from east to west and people and
so you got a nice timeline going on here.
Yeah, this is the Winchester timeline.
I think it's just so interesting. It just starts 1860.
Yeah,
and it
is very strange.
Zero Aries, fire, like a weapon, a bullet, a flint, like just boom.
But but why? And I was actually, when I looked at what you were showing as well, when you were showing the percussion rifle.
Right? Oh, right.
And it said it was invented by Eli Whitney III. And you know, Eli Whitney the first, because I looked it up really fast to see if that was him. Eli Whitney the first is the one who invented the cotton gin.
Oh,
right?
Yeah. Well.
So to me, what's interesting is all of these men who are in the early 19th century have these manufactories.
That makes sense, yeah.
They're creating these factories.
Well, and that's all also really interesting because it's Uranus Taurus, then Uranus Gemini, like we've lived through. Right? So like the Uranus Taurus moment is where the cotton gin and all that stuff is like being manufactured, but also the slave owners are taking that and bringing them onto the plantations.
And also what it will do eventually is to change the labor force because there's this new technology. Kind of sounds familiar when I was up north also, the thing I told you in the Bay Area, there were billboards everywhere for get your AI assistant.
Right.
So, interns everywhere who want to have their entry-level jobs doing that are not getting hired now because AI can do it all. But it's like this technology moving the workforce or changing the workforce. But then also, when you think about guns in this whole thing, that same technology is applied to the weapons, right?
Yeah, so like now, you know what it is? Drones. Right? Like the biggest drone attacks, right as Neptune went into Aries. in Ukraine, that whole surprise attack on Russia, and then the surprise attack on Iran, and now America's just invested hugely into drones. Right? Like everything's turning into this, like the drone being the new weapon, right? So
then what we could expect, I think, if you look at this rifle story, is by the time you get to the 1870s here, so at the end of
that's
that
what I'm interested in. The end, like 18 right there, 83 through 85 is the end of Neptune Aries.
It's just funny that, at that point.
Oh, the Browning invention. Okay.
What is it? John Moses Browning?
Yeah. I was going to say, Browning makes tons of firearms, so.
There was only one poster in the house. I saw this one calendar for Winchester rifles that was issued by them, because I was thinking
he brings out the semi-automatic guns for Winchester, yeah.
But when you think about this, like we also have...
That means you can just start pop, 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 pop.
Yeah. Anyway... So that was
means drones will be, I don't know what drones will be doing at the end of Neptune Aries, but they'll be.
Like that's what I was going to say is what we see is that maybe the military is investing in things and you see them being used by states, but people also have the weapons.
Well, that was what was weird in this new bill is like, and also one of the legislature things that happened is like drone companies are allowed to be making, like there's no more regulation over drone creators for drone manufacturers. Like they're just able to do civilian, military, whatever. They've opened it up.
Well, and I don't think there was regulation on these guns at this time either.
No, there never should be. It's the Second Amendment.
Okay.
There's no regulation on the First Amendment.
Never thought about it. But this is when the technology is getting so advanced that you can take out. Well, that actually what happens is if you look at Custer's Last Stand, which is what by I don't remember the year, 72 or 4, I don't remember the year exactly because I think it's not Neptune Aries anymore. But by the time of Custer's Last Stand,
1876, right at the beginning of the Neptune and
so what
Taurus.
happens there is you've got the U.S. military people, right? Custer and all of those people who are taken out by Native Americans who
the Cheyenne warriors, yeah.
They've got the Winchester repeating rifles, but the soldiers did not. And I think it's interesting that the technology of destruction, whatever it is going to spread if we think about it for today too. I mean, actually, and then I think about, I was just thinking about
the Battle of Little Bighorn.
Yeah. So today we have situations like in Los Angeles where a couple of times recently there have been, people who have guns and they fire on ICE agents. But also, did you see that story of the car that ran into the crowd in East Hollywood? And the way that guy was partially how he was corralled because it was the crowd that got him.
The crowd pulled him out of the car and somebody had a gun on them and shot him. And they're looking for the guy who shot the guy who ran over 23 people. I don't think they need to look for the guy. I think that they just that's a good Samaritan.
Yeah. But I mean, that's like I was telling my daughter about this and she said, I thought we didn't have open carry in California. And I said,
people carry.
It doesn't matter if you have
actually
the law
more
or not.
people carry in places that have higher regulations. Like look at Chicago.
Yeah.
In LA, same thing too.
I mean, so if we look at what's happening on the ground, weapons are just a part of our life in similar ways, where at this time they are part of people's lives for very real reasons. If you're out in the West and a buffalo herd might come and stampede your house or whatever it is, your tent, you probably need to have protection, whatever it is. But also you start to get people like Buffalo Bill Cody who create their identities around it. Or Theodore
and they tell the
Roosevelt,
stories of the West, the Davy Crockett's, the Alamo, the things that happen in the West, which ironically is very much based off these new weapons. You know, if a sheriff came into town and he has his Winchester, revolver, kind of like long, right? And then a couple guys come in with some Winchester rifles, the deputies run away. So towns get taken over because the sheriff and his deputies kind of like, we keep the peace and we make sure everybody's okay. But when these rough, people come into town, they want to gamble and drink whiskey, they get drunk and they pull out really nice rifles, and they just took the Wells Fargo train. That's the other thing too. The weapons start to go rob all the bank trains, and they're sending money across America in a wagon. With the guy, and the idea of shotgun is from that. We always say shotgun.
All right.
Shotgun is the guy who sat next to the guy who had the reins of the horse on the trains, on the wagon trains. You rode shotgun, you're holding a shotgun.
And that's it. And then you're facing people with all these other weapons.
Yeah, and I think that the Buffalo Bill stuff is like, he's the voice of the whole West. Like, he tells all the stories. And nobody really told all the stories. And that's where you get, in Western movies, and you get, all these ideas and stories, all because of Buffalo Bill. Of course, Buffalo Bill was given a couple different medals, and the military took them away from him, which I find really interesting. But
I have a little bit on Buffalo Bill, and of course I named it Buffalo Phil, which was an accident, but I don't really know much about him, so I just looked up a quick thing, and I think this is interesting that he moved to Kansas during Bleeding Kansas.
Right. He was in all of it. He's really he's like my daughter, born at the end of Neptune and Pisces.
Yeah.
And so he's through the Civil War, but he's really through the beginnings before the Civil War, right? He's aware in his youth of like watching the country really split, seeing the arguments over territories, seeing in states, seeing the a world that did pre-Civil War, a world in Civil War, a world after Civil War, and then went and witnessed everything happening west, which they considered like from Tennessee on, right? So all the Davy Crockett also was in Congress, right? So a lot of people forget Davy Crockett actually served in Congress. More than just Davy Crockett, the man on the wild frontier. And the whole idea of like all that comes from Buffalo Bill telling those stories. It's a little bit like Mark Twain, who's writing fiction. Buffalo Bill's the Mark Twain making the stories of nonfiction and adding fictionary kind of enhance. Like I'll use an oh man, this thing really, it just logged me out. It's so funny that I think it's actually not us. It's Vimeo right now. It's having issues.
So weird that he had these reenactment shows that went around too, and it says that they reenacted Custer's Last Stand. They had stagecoach robberies.
That's why he lost his military medals and so forth, because of all that kind of stuff. It kind of made some embarrassing aspects for America. But like this is Custer's Last Stand, and I love how they incorrectly show the U.S. soldiers with the guns and the Native Americans without guns, even though it was the Native Americans with the shotguns, the rifles that actually, right? So it's incorrectly portrayed. So that's really interesting to me, right? Like that it's like, all I see are hatchets and axes and bows and arrows.
Yeah, they're just showing them sort of overwhelmed by all of them coming in, and they're
there's
like
actually one. They show one or two Native Americans with a gun, but they show them with a pistol.
This is a really interesting.
Right, this is from Getty. This is actually from history.com.
And When was that? I wonder when that image
This is the
was
Battle
created.
of Little Bighorn. And this was the Custer's last stand. And they're trying to show him right here with his 2 revolvers, you know.
And look how they're showing, like, who was this? The Cheyenne? I can't remember.
Yeah, it was the...
So it shows them coming through this pass as if they were blindsided.
Correct.
Like, oh, wow, we accidentally were unprepared.
Oh,
they're
yeah,
so
and they show the
fearless.
one Native American down, but he does have a musket,
And look at this guy with the bow and arrow.
right? So that's all incorrect.
How interesting.
But
yeah.
that's kind of how... That's why there's a lot of tension between Native American and, you know, I guess you could say American culture, because the clashes between those two went on before America was America. The French Indian War, I mean, even going back to Jamestown. Not
Yeah.
with the Pilgrims, though. They made a 50-year deal.
But in this time is the time where where the deals were made and people were stabbed in the back and lands were taken
Right.
away, and they had agreements that they made, but then the U.S. reneged on them and they had to go
Right.
to reservations. Like, this is the whole time where they're being moved.
Yeah,
They're the
big
ones
time.
being moved around and put into separate areas, right? I mean, it's interesting that you see such a movement of people today, but at this time there's this forced migration.
Right.
And when it wasn't the Trail of Tears a little bit earlier? I'm not sure.
I mean, like
about
here
that.
they have another, like somebody's trying to show, and there's actually more. Now you're seeing weapons in the hands of the Native Americans there.
And it's interesting that he's got his, what do you call those handguns? Because the Colt was also created in New Haven, and their factory was in New Haven as well.
Yeah, I'm going to put on yours because I'll pull
Oh.
something else up.
I was just looking at when was the Trail of Tears, which is earlier, 1830 to 1850, when people were displaced and moved to Oklahoma, is it? I'm not sure. But that's that first big migration of people. So we can see that here. So this this all happened earlier, but I think in the 1860s and 70s is
That's
when
all
you see it
Neptune
happening
Aries,
in the
yeah.
West. 1830 to 1838 is
Oh, the Indian removals.
removal.
I know, and it's really weird because it comes back up when President Garfield becomes president, only for his first year, and then he dies. He gets shot, but he chooses not, because there was this idea of converting all of the Native Americans to become Christians that was going through that whole period.
and
Up until the
continuing on.
1880s,
Yeah.
until President Garfield got the Quakers to say no, and he listened to them. He's part of my family, like in my first line, Quaker line, and the Quakers and him, and he had Quaker lines. And he's like, "Yep, no, we're gonna let," and that's the idea of giving them their space and letting them practice whatever religion they want and let them do what they want. It takes all the way till the 1880s, but there's that 50 years from here of just mayhem. But that's the interesting thing about the weapons is the Native Americans finally can have a one-up and beat the U.S. in certain places at certain times, if they have them, Cheyenne were pretty fierce. That's the other thing is like different Indian tribes had different powers, like as far as like how to come together. Some of them more spiritual than others in a way of like not maybe being a little bit more pacifist and hoping for a good outcome, and then horrible incidents with kind of runoff, kind of rogue U.S. military men who just there's a lot of stories that are bad on both sides.
Well, it's interesting, this book, the stories of the Wild West that you have.
That's the
Campfire
original
chats.
1880. I'll put it on you. That's the original 1888 original Buffalo Bill.
But it's interesting, some of the images here are, if I can find one and I'll show it, but let me look for that one that we were looking at earlier. But what you see a lot in many places in the 1880s, that was really around the world this time when everyone realized we are an industrialized world now, and so many of our old ways have disappeared. And so you see these kind of romanticized accounts of the world that's gone. So Buffalo Bill, like his stories would be, I'm sure, very popular because by that time, in the 1880s, I don't know, I should have tried to figure this out, but I wonder how many big, thriving cities there are in the West, in the western part of the U.S.
Not many.
But we've established, or the U.S. has established itself very well in the West by then, and a lot of this world is gone that he's showing. But it is interesting too that he's known for being sympathetic to the Native American.
And I have
voice.
A personal picture, family picture.
Oh yeah, let's see that.
And this is actually, look at that bottom. That's, I think I could show it right here. That's actually the Buffalo Bill, same as that book. Mm-hmm. But this is the Palmer and Dunham. This is one of our many stores in Baker City, Oregon. And this was the saddle shop that my family owned right here. And there's Buffalo Bill, and here's the Native Americans, and everybody's happy with their American flag and unified. And this is the same time that this book came out, and he was going around telling the stories and shaking hands and taking pictures, and was always, usually, if he can, with Native Americans as well, and with other people of the city, and showing kind of a unified America. And so this was late 1880s. And then, so like this was Baker City. This is actually where the Oregon Trail Museum is in Oregon, because this is where you chose. Do you go to Oregon and stay here and keep going, or do you go to California? The split in the Oregon Trail. And my family had many stores. So here's some Winchester rifles that my family sold.
Look at how much of the store is rifles. Wow.
And then bicycles, okay? That was a big thing. Or jewelry, or,
lots of stuff
for just like that you would actually need for your home.
And stuff. Yeah.
Kettle, right? So that was one of them. We also were the first Indian motorcycle, the first motorcycle that came out. We were the first dealer in the West. So we sold the Indian motorcycle. This is my third great grandfather, Walter Lyle Palmer. And there's my great grandfather that's sitting there as a kid. In 1904, that was the first automobile in the West. It was an Oldsmobile 1-cylinder. He had the first one. And my family used to go out and when the first car came out, and go out and take it to go like, this is my family, and these are my great grandparents and stuff, like, and my great grandfather, like literally picnicking in the West in cars. My dad, early road trips, the Palmer family on the left. So this is, right here. Yeah, so this is all my Palmer side right there. And then, so here's another shot of that store. So this is one of the many stores, right? So we did saddles, we did all those kind of things. This is just like what it would look like, right? In Baker City, Oregon back in the day. So this is my great grandfather right here.
Well, and of course, today we don't even think about that. You kind of need a gun if you're going to eat at that time.
Right. So my great-great-grandfather, he was the first class of 1891 in Baker City, Oregon's high school. That was it, those 5. The first graduating class.
And that was 1891?
That was 1891, yeah. But my family came way earlier, right? Well, this is just all Oregon stuff. But yeah, my family came way earlier, right, in 1860, right? And so the guy you saw isn't even born yet, right? Like that's my fourth great grandfather. That's my third great grandfather. And then his son is the one you just saw. And so they came a long way, right? So there's Robert there and there's Walter. So, it goes back. And, she's connected to all the presidents right there.
Is that the...
That's like my Taft line, Garfield line, all that.
She's the one who first came
She's
out, right?
cousins with President Taft, yeah.
Well, I mean, so that's the 60s, 70s. So it's 30 years.
Yeah.
Why at that time is there so much change from 1860 to 1880, where you can have Buffalo Bill write this book, and it's like, I mean, you see pictures in here. I don't know if you can see this, but
yeah, we can do that.
This is an example of how, I don't know if people can see it.
But I need to move it back towards you because the
focus.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So you can see there. It's what does the title say? Dashing Charge by the Indians.
Yep.
Right? And it really romanticizes the
like
Native
I said,
Americans.
yeah, like there's a lot of
Like they're the ones who are the ones that you would admire. Or here is rioting with spoils taken from a freight train. And at different points it shows like a scalp and
scalping and
yeah,
yep.
all sorts of things. So you can think, wow, look at these majestic people who once were here and now we're here. So
Right.
you're kind of looking back on this lost time, but it's taken 30 years to pretty much supplant that whole lifestyle and put something different.
Right.
So I'm just wondering, like, why such quick change at that point, astrologically?
Well, I think it's especially the 1880s is what really changes the game. So we have like 3 minutes and then I have to roll, but I'll show people on this chart. We'll look at the by hand right now, but it's okay. Okay, let's do, it's Neptune still. It's Neptune conjunct Pluto.
Oh.
The longest transit of all transits. 1885. Right? Oh, wait, hold on. No, sorry. I think it's a little later. So there we go. 1891. There it is. Neptune, Pluto, 8 degrees. We're still in it. They have not conjuncted since. The next Neptune conjunct Pluto transit, right after 1891, 1892, no event found on astro.com. I mean, on Astrogold. They can't even calculate it.
So it didn't come together.
It did come together, 1891 and 1892. Neptune and Pluto. Man, these people will not give up. Oh, wait, no, this is about, this is about another office. You can do this now on, this is all the beta stuff for Apple. I'm telling the person while it's calling and having AI be my person in my voice.
You have
saying,
your AI assistant.
but it's me saying like, hey, I can't talk right now, whatever I type in.
Yeah, wow.
On the phone. Pretty cool. Hi, David. Good afternoon. Yeah. You and I met. Yeah, I was connected to you. Yeah, okay. Yeah, I know. But anyway, so that's the big shift of the world.
So Neptune and Pluto didn't meet before.
You want to know prior?
Yeah, or no.
No event found.
So why?
So Neptune's orbit is faster than Pluto's at certain times. It actually, Pluto is faster than Neptune at certain times. Pluto's orbit actually comes in closer to the sun. So that math, when you do it over time, it just finally gets to a place where Neptune can finally get to a place and where Pluto is right there and Neptune and Pluto. You could switch it And you can do Pluto conjunct Neptune, right? So this is Pluto conjuncting Neptune at some points. And it's weird that in history, the whole world shifts. I mean, I could go on my solar fire and do it. But put it this way, your Astro Gold won't even do it. Right? So it's a long time away. We're in the sextile right now. And Neptune's ahead. Still ahead. So when I was born in 1984, I'm Pluto-Neptune exact sextile. We're in the exact sextile again. So we've gone 41 years starting tomorrow for me and hasn't changed.
Wow.
Right? But it's taken 130 plus years to get to where we're at the sextile. So just imagine how much longer it is. But that's the moment that we're not going to go through. And that's really, if you think of just like Neptune, and it's in Gemini. And so what makes Uranus and Gemini so big is not just the fact that we're in there now, but you know, that 8-degree Gemini is really intense. If you also look at America's Gemini, it's right there. So that's why America is so part of the Neptune-Uranus conjunction. And that's why America ain't going anywhere. People thought Pluto return. Right. That's not as powerful as Neptune-Uranus. Or even the Pluto-Saturns, we see those every 33 to 34 years. Or Jupiter-Saturns, you see those every 20. Neptune-Pluto... yeah, even Astro Gold can't calculate it for you. And
it conjuncted at 8 degrees, you said?
At 8 degrees. Which also the transits of Venus is all close to that from 2004, 2012. The Mars retrograde in Gemini, stationing there, coming direct. Like I did my whole Hypergate stuff based off that one part as well. And I think that's where it kind of takes us into this place of like, it's not going away, the idea that life and environments are going to be in constant change, and ideas are going to swell up new ideas that change the atmosphere and the environment of the localities of places, people, ideas, transportation, communication. It means we're going to space. You know, because we're getting new stuff from another place. So I do have to go, but
well, I don't know. I feel like we just opened a door. We're going to have to talk about more about later. And
it's good to get back in the saddle, though. We also have your school that's going to be starting. We're thinking around August 5th. You want to talk about it real quick?
Yeah, I'm so excited. I get to teach a school for High Vibe, and you'll be able to purchase it on High Vibe TV. It's going to be all about, well, the title of it's called Dare to Know, Enlightenment, Astrology, and the Hidden Curriculum of Revolution. I have it here. I don't know if we can show, I guess we probably can't show it at the moment, but we're going to be looking at the Pluto generations of each of the groups of people who became revolutionaries, because all of us share those Pluto placements right now.
Yeah.
And we share so much more also from that time. So I thought it'd be interesting to look at what we can learn from those people, think about ourselves, but also all our families, our friends, everybody we know. We have this weird mix of Pluto generations all interacting at the same time. So we're going to look at Enlightenment people who embody these same characteristics and figure out what we can learn from them, and then hopefully learn how to be change makers ourselves.
Yes, but I do want to show people trying to get this open, just kind of like a little mini overview that you had sent me to people. It's gonna be amazing. So as she goes through these generations, you know, it's pretty wild because some of these ideas that she has in here are just so cool. Like the Pluto and going through the prelude, the Pluto and Taurus and Gemini, connecting it with what's happening, different people, because it makes you really think when you start going through these generations and you go through these Pluto cycles, the Pluto Cancer. I mean, we know so many people in our lives that are born at that period, but going back also from the time prior. Where's those connections? But teaching people history, teaching people to look at themselves. There's so much when you go through Pluto Leo, Pluto Virgo, Pluto Libra, Scorpio, Sag, Capricorn, Aquarius. So I don't want to give her whole thing away, but you know what I mean? It is going to be in depth. So I just want to show that to people.
Yeah, I've got a lot, and I'm really hoping to be able to get through, all of what I want to do. But I'm just excited, and I want people to think about their own histories and their own stories as well. And I'll probably have even little assignments where you'll look at primary documents, and I can't get
awesome.
I can't get the historian out of myself, but
no, that's what I think anybody wants. If you're going to learn history, get the real deal.
Yeah, I'm excited to look at history with astrology because, like I said at the beginning of this, I mean, every time people say those who don't learn from history are doomed to repeat it, the reason it keeps repeating is because people aren't looking at the actual patterns of the astrology that could help you figure out, well, what is actually repeating right now.
Yeah.
Right?
I think that's super important, especially I think we need it more than ever now. So.
People are whipping out the guns on the street and firing it at people who run into crowds.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
So. Well, thank you, Ann. That was a great show. We'll catch you guys all on Wednesdays. It'll be every other Wednesday. We just did this because of my birthday tomorrow.
Oh, and happy birthday, David.
Thank
happy
you.
early birthday.
All good.
Have a great day tomorrow.
41's kind of
fun.
It's your Saturn year. Everybody goes to the 40, their Jupiter year, and then Saturn. They go into 41 and 42 is always Saturn. So.
You get a lot done this year.
Yeah, because my last Saturn was during my Saturn return. So, thank God it's not this time. I'm like, whew. Saturn's in trine. So I'm like, okay, to my son and stuff. I'm like, okay. But I appreciate that. So, all right, everyone. We'll see you Wednesdays, every other Wednesday. So not next Wednesday, but the following. And then Ant School will be out. Probably before then, I'll be putting all that out. We'll be promoting it everywhere. And keep up to date on High Vibe TV for info on that. So it's going to be awesome. Looking forward to it. We'll see you all later. Adios. Have a good one. And see you later. Bye-bye. All right, we're good.
You're late for your...
I know.
All right.
I told them no.
Okay. Do you want me to stop it? All right, thanks. It felt like such a fast show.